Welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witness leadership that they are living and providing a modern-day spiritual paradise. Never is it more true than this week. I'm your host here, Stacy Bauman, former elder for these guys, ministerial servant, and a kid raised as a Jehovah's Witness in the 70s and 80s. As I do, some of this can be triggering, depending on where you are in your journey with Jehovah's Witnesses. We're going to help you find the door here. Nonetheless, please note that nothing ever said here is meant to offend, simply my own brand of observation. So welcome in. I'm getting my voice back, recovering from pneumonia. Thank you for all the very, very kind notes and DMs. Much appreciated from you wonderful folks. And I'm feeling better. But this week in Paradise, I'm going to encourage you to watch your step. Watch your step. Quick note as well, I'm going to be traveling next week, and we'll be taking a little break from talking about Jehovah's Witnesses for a few days. Candidly, I'm kind of excited. So just a note, there will be a gap in programming here. I'm not even sure if this is something I'm supposed to share. I don't know. Just letting everybody know it'll be a little abnormal. I hope that those who are considering at this point all things Jehovah's Witnesses from a former Jehovah's Witness, that's me, will enjoy one of the past episodes of this crazy little show. I can assure you that no Holy Spirit has been harmed in the making of any single episode, and for comfort purposes, all the episodes overlap. See what I did there? Okay. But before I take a brief break in year 111 of the last days that never seem to end, I need something a little lighter this week. And so it's back. I'm reaching into the Jehovah's Witness grab bag of wisdom with my latest installment of Greatest Hits. This is actually Volume 5 if you've been here a while, which is deeply appreciated, but Volume 5. And for those that may be new to the program, it features all kinds of words of wisdom from the leadership, modern-day governing body, and even the guys that came before them, I guess, at times reaching all the way back to when Jesus Christ allegedly returned invisibly. We can't confirm other than there's wars, and he sat down on his throne in 1914. What did he see when he investigated the world's religions? Who was identified as that faithful slave from his parable? That's right, it's a parable, not a prophecy for those new to the concept in Matthew. What were these religions saying? What were they doing? What were they publishing as Jesus himself kicked off the last days in 1914? And I'm here to tell you I wasn't there, but undoubtedly it was very impressive. Impressive enough that Jesus Christ of the Bible instantly landed on this organization to represent him as a mouthpiece to all of mankind. And with each passing second, the leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses, they have a heavy job. It's their job to feed Jesus' sheep and to save precious lives. So let's dig into all the wisdom that starts in heaven. I've compiled here this week a few greatest hits that I hope get people thinking. You might laugh a little, let's be honest, and contemplating whether Jehovah's Witnesses are truly the truth, as they call it. As a reminder, I know it's repetitive for those that listen in regularly, but everything you hear today is accessible to you, dear listener. It's in the Watchtower Library or available via older publications that you can get your hands on. And oh yes, I will likely hear from Jehovah's Witness apologists who are unaware of what can easily be found in their own library. But here are a few things to consider before we jump into our latest installment of the Greatest Hits grab bag. As a reminder, disclaimer, or whatever you want to call it, the Watchtower of February 15th, 2009, page 27 says, quote, Since Jehovah God and Jesus Christ completely trust the faithful and discreet slave, should we not do the same? End quote. Well, good question. From the Watchtower of March 1st, 1987, page 15, we are told, quote, each article in both the Watchtower and Awake and every page, including the artwork, is scrutinized by selected members of the governing body before it is printed. Therefore, you can read the Watchtower and Awake with confidence. End quote. Wow, it's welling up in me already. The governing body personally looks at every page of the Watchtower and Awake, including the illustrations, the artwork, and they greenlight them. Real reason to be confident. And how about one more? From the December 15th, 1990 Watchtower, page 26, we are told, and this one's really important for the greatest hits episodes, quote, for over a century, delightful, correct words of truth covering every aspect of life have been presented in the Watchtower Society's publications. End quote. And there it is. Delightful, correct words of truth covering every aspect of life. Disclaimers from the governing body spanning back 3 different decades in those quotes that I just read to you. And so for those well-meaning Jehovah's Witnesses or apologists on social media, on TikTok, on YouTube, Spotify, and more, that send me notes saying, we don't believe that anymore, or they're just imperfect men like Moses was, or you apostates are just a bunch of liars, well, I just gave you references from your Watchtower library on your website from your governing body. The guys that claim Jesus gives them personal direction, right? Undeniable, even if it doesn't feel good, and we understand. So let's jump into our greatest hits, Volume 5. I cannot have one of these greatest hit compilations without a look back at the life-saving wisdom and medical advice put to print by this organization over the years. Looking back at past spiritual food should give us all an abundance of confidence in things like their current blood doctrine. Oh, very confident, even if it's changed a lot. A person should, as they said, overflow with confidence. Anyone, a person, should risk their one and only life following the medical advice from the governing body, even as you consider the past medical advice they gave to their contemporary Bible students and Jehovah's Witnesses following them in past decades. It only makes sense. The Holy Spirit flows through these men. As always, please make a special note of the year these references are from that I'm about to share with you. Remember, Jesus showed back up. He showed back up. He's invisible, right? But he chose this organization allegedly in 1919. And then he proceeded to dispense the following greatest hits, medical advice. And why wouldn't he? He is actually the creator of man. So he knows the human anatomy better than anyone else, right? Does that make sense? So here goes. Who doesn't love babies? Who doesn't love a little baby, an infant? I mean, the smell of a freshly bathed baby's head is pure joy. Their belly laughter, pure joy. Who doesn't love babies? I mean, come on. Settle in now for greatest hit number 1. It comes to us from the golden age of November 26, 1919, the year Jesus chose this organization on page 153. where it tells us this, quote, even years ago, it was known by some people that the use of pacifiers by babies is one of the chief causes of diseased and enlarged tonsils and adenoid growths, which results from the suction. End quote. Greatest hit number one, pacifiers are giving your baby disease. Oh no. You may have witnessed Jehovah's people rebelling against the faithful slave in your congregation because, well, there's a lot of babies with pacifiers in their mouths. Did the elders counsel these people when they saw a mother or father give their baby a Binky during the circuit overseer's talk? Did mom sin when she gave an 8-month-old a pacifier during the memorial so they wouldn't reach for the crackers and wine? Worse yet, from the men who encourage parents to let their children die instead of taking a blood transfusion. You remember the same faithful slave of 1919, the year they claim Jesus chose them. Well, those guys say that you're giving your children diseases and enlarged tonsils and adenoids by giving them their Binky. From the same guys who say reporting child abusers to the authorities in 2025 isn't necessary, it's just optional. That's what they're telling the elders. Those same guys have the kind of inspired medical advice that may save your little baby from this, you remember this, tonsillitis. Tonsillitis is very serious stuff, folks. Strep throat, all that stuff. In fact, you remember these same men Jesus chose the year this was printed in 1919, and I do mean these same men or the people that came before them in the role, they gave advice like this. Yeah, I'm about to read it again. If you just gave your baby a pacifier to shut them up at the Kingdom Hall and at the meeting, and they got a sore throat, that's right, a sore throat. These men, the guys that came before, guys like Stephen Lett and David Splain, they told Jehovah's Witnesses just 7 years later, I guess you would now have a 7-year-old at this point, they told them this. From the golden age of April 7th, 1926, page 438, remember your baby's Binky is giving them a sore throat. Here's their medical advice. Quote, tonsillectomy is called a minor operation. If so, getting well is a double major. If any overzealous doctor condemns your tonsils, go and commit suicide with a case knife. It's cheaper and less painful. End quote. Ladies and gentlemen, an all-time favorite, the golden age of 1926, April 7th. Yeah, I know I've covered this before, but this new information on the pacifier for babies and their Binky, I'm going to say that greatest hit is probably new to many Jehovah's Witnesses. And I found myself wondering if this was new light. Is it just the path getting brighter and brighter? Your baby's Binky causes disease. A disease so devastating, you're better off taking your life with a case knife, according to the faithful and discreet slave, during the time Jesus chose them to be his mouthpiece. I mean, come on. The wisdom of the faithful and discreet slave in 1919 to 1926. And as I read at the outset of this, isn't your confidence soaring in these men? Your baby has a sore throat. Better to go off them with a case knife. And it's all been your fault anyway. Is now a good time to repeat myself? In the end, the counsel from God's organization should give parents pause the next time they go to Walmart and buy their new baby a pacifier. In case you're wondering, I then searched the deep things of Jehovah's library, looking for answers to additional questions regarding suckling babies. How does Jehovah feel about baby bottles? Is he angry that his son Jesus made the perfect female breast, but we show no appreciation because we sinfully give our baby a man-made alternative, a bottle? How does he feel about this? Does he think we are copycats with the bottle nipple? Well, they just ripped off the female breast there. I couldn't find any words of wisdom from the faithful slave on bottles. Correct me if you find it, but I'll keep looking. So I naturally began to wonder about the human thumb. I mean, babies like thumbs. In absence of a Binky, is a thumb okay? Can babies suck on their thumbs? Well, as it turns out, folks, the thumb, the one on your hand, gets its own entry in the Watchtower Library. Go look if you're interested. Did you even know this? I didn't, because I was just swimming in confidence that I should never give a baby a pacifier, and if it gets a sore throat, well, you heard what they said to do. There isn't much on the thumb because, if I'm not going to give them a pacifier, kids are teething, okay. But the thumb comes with its own challenges for Jehovah's Witnesses. Did you know this? It sent me to one of my personal favorite stories in the Bible, all courtesy of the God of love. It comes this time from Insight from the Scriptures, Volume 1, page 49, under Adonai-Bezek. It says, quote, a powerful ruler, prior to the Israelite attack on Bezek, had humbled 70 pagan kings by cutting off their thumbs and great toes. These are people who are not going to have careers on OnlyFans, I might add. It's a separate subject. Back to the quote. A similar practice was employed at one time by the ancient Athenians, who decreed that prisoners of war should lose their thumbs. End quote for a moment. So was Jehovah copying pagan nations, the Athenians? Never mind. Back to the quote. Thereafter, they could row, but were unfit to handle a sword or spear. Soon after Joshua's death, the combined forces of Judah and Simeon, Jehovah's couple of his tribes, clashed with 10,000 troops of the Canaanites and Perizzites at Bezek, causing Adonai-Bezek to flee from the defeat. Note this from the Insight, Volume 1, quote, upon being captured, his thumbs and great toes were also severed, at which he declared, just the way I have done, so God has repaid me. He was then transported to Jerusalem where he died. End quote. Okay. You may have seen that incredible wisdom from the faithful slave in 1919. You thought pacifiers were really bad for babies. Well, it looks like Jesus and his father also have some strong feelings about thumbs and big toes. But at least it wasn't with babies, right? And there weren't any sore throats. Looks like a Jehovah's Witness is good to go on babies sucking their thumbs. And I felt relieved. Or maybe, I have to admit, maybe, we're doing hair and pants and stuff, maybe there's going to be a future question from the readers. Should my infant suck its thumb? Is it as bad as the pacifier? Not sure, folks, but here we are. Pacifiers, your baby's Binky, lead to diseases and possible case knife endings. I'm not going there. And we have early proof that Jesus clearly directs the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses, right? This all came from Jesus. I read it to you from your library. One thing is for certain. If your baby is teething, you had better take the time to consider how the faithful and very discreet slave feels about what you put in your baby's mouth. You disease-wielding, ignorant parent. You need them and their advice to know how to deal with your baby's sore gums. Greatest hit number one this week, folks. But before I move on from the wisdom of the faithful slave's medical advice, I'm going to slip one more in here. And it's from the aptly titled change to the Golden Age magazine. They changed it to the name Consolation. Oh yes, consoling, consolation. And this one comes to us really quickly from the December 1st, 1931, good 11, 12 years after Jesus sat on the throne, and page 12. And you will undoubtedly be consoled by this information. Are you ready? It tells us this, quote, "A subscriber finds a drop or two of kerosene excellent for quickly cleaning sinks and bathtubs. It cuts the dirt immediately and leaves no odor? Kerosene? Never mind." Quote, back to the quote, "And when applied to cuts, the cuts heal sooner. Try it." End quote. Yes. And I am here to tell you, I know I'm not anointed. I'm not on my fast track to heaven. I'll never get to meet the apostles Peter and James. But I'm here to tell you, please, please do not try this. Even though the faithful slave invited you to, quote, try it. Put kerosene in a cut. And but here is what actual medical people have to say about using kerosene to clean an open wound. And again, you'll notice they don't say, try it, like the governing body and the guys who came before them do. This from the Wiley Online Medical Library, also not part of the Faithful Slave, which said this, quote, "It is obvious that kerosene chemical-based components are toxic materials for the human body." End quote for a moment. Again, we got pacifiers, we got kerosene. Jesus, the creator of the human body, we're not sure, folks. He chose these guys in 1919, and here we are. Back to the quote, "These materials were found to cause significant direct and indirect dangerous effects on health through inhalation, ingestion, injection, or local dermal contacts. These negative effects may lead to losing the functions of organs of body or lead to long-term disabilities." End quote. Kerosene. Put it in your wounds. As the faithful slave said in 1931, try it. No, please don't try it. The Creator, Jesus Christ, was handing out some shaky advice, despite creating us. But how about one more from the Watchtower of December 15th, 1990, page 26. And this one is a reminder, after all of the wonderful discreet advice you've heard, we already read it, but here it is again, quote, "For over a century, delightful, correct words of truth, covering every aspect of life, have been presented in the Watchtower Society's publications." End quote. Yeah, indeed. Words of wisdom for well over a century, or so they say in 1990 in the Watchtower. But the medical advice runs deep in the guys Jesus allegedly chose to help him judge the rest of us at Armageddon. Baby pacifiers and kerosene in open wounds. Yeah, not exactly the best advice. Nonetheless, they've been printing correct words of truth for well over a century, folks. And this one is clearly one of my greatest hits from the grab bag of Holy Spirit that is Jehovah's Witnesses. Just a good time. Let's move on to greatest hit number 2. And this one is so special. In fact, I would say I would put this one into my top 10 all-time favorite nuggets or quotes from the Faithful and Discreet Slave. It comes to us from the Watchtower of August 1st, 1934, under the article Righteous Rule. It's on page 54, if you'd like to go read it. Were the Faithful and Discreet Slave precursors to the governing body in 1971, they said this, quote, That which is true is open to the most searching criticism and is certain to emerge from such criticism entirely unscathed. Only error seeks a place of hiding from the searchlight of truth. End quote. Is it obvious? Just 15 years into Jesus' reign, he had his guys telling the world that truth is always truth. You can criticize it, but it doesn't change, and truth triumphs in the end. To examine what is a proclaimed truth is perfectly okay. You won't find errors, as they said, and there is no hiding from the truth. This is from The Faithful Slave in 1934. Anything Jehovah's Witnesses and their leadership serve up to mankind is considered truth. And in this greatest hit from 1934, you're free to scrutinize it all you want. They just said it. They're confident their version of truth will remain unscathed. Again, want to remind you, don't give your baby a Binky and don't wash your wounds with kerosene. Moving on, a few things on this one. But first, who wants to tell them? Who wants to tell them? When you make the comment that their version of truth is open to the most searching criticism, as they put it, that they have nothing to hide, truth is truth, but then they say the following, I think you have a problem. From the July 15th, 1974 Watchtower, page 441, we're told, quote, "The point is that Christians have implicit trust in their Heavenly Father. They do not question what He tells them through His written word and organization." End quote. Wait a minute. Well, now, wait a minute. I just read the quote, the greatest hit, that said truth was open to scrutiny. Did Jesus send down some new light? This was from the 1970s, what I just read. Well, not really. He really didn't, because check out what he then said in the 1980s. From the January 15th, 1983 Watchtower, page 22, Jesus and the governing body said, quote, "Avoid questioning the counsel that is provided by God's visible organization." End quote. Wait a minute. What? I thought that only mistakes or errors hide from the truth. I'm not allowed to ask in the 1980s? I'm not allowed to ask any questions? No, you are not. But maybe there's been more new light. If you're a witness listening, you think, well, that was the 1980s. Maybe there's been new light. Okay. How about the 1990s, where the same guys said in the November 15th, 1992 Watchtower, page 20, quote, "However, loyal elders never try to influence others to reject any of the spiritual food provided by God through the faithful slave. As Jehovah's dedicated witnesses, all of us must be loyal to him and to his organization." End quote. Wow. Well, let's be honest here, folks. This is getting weird. I just spanned 3 decades. Okay, you're a witness still on the fence. How about the 2000s? Okay, the Watchtower of July 15th, 2011, page 24, the Simplified English edition, we're told, quote, "We need to obey the faithful and discreet slave to have Jehovah's approval." End quote. Oh, okay. You see, somewhere along the way, Jesus decided he was going to redefine what truth is. He's going to redefine it all. He's going to give it a facelift. And suddenly, without explanation, he decided what he said about questioning truth in 1934 in print. Well, he made a mistake that no longer applies. I know it's uncomfortable. Jesus makes mistakes, apparently, right? He evidently became afraid to have his version of truth examined somewhere along the way. Without any clarification, truth was suddenly vulnerable to criticism and could be, I guess, scathed. He said in 34 it could remain unscathed, but I guess it gets scathed now? But perhaps my favorite part is the second sentence from my greatest hit, the August 1st, 1934 Watchtower, page 54. You remember, it said this, quote, "Only error seeks a place of hiding from the searchlight of the truth." End quote. Yeah, yep. That in itself is in fact true. Only error hides. The truth never changes. Incidentally, for a witness that might be listening, neither does Jesus Christ. He doesn't change. You remember from his book at Hebrews 13:8 of the New World Translation, where we're told, quote, "Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever," end quote. Yeah, not a lot of variance there. But is he now? If you're a Jehovah's Witness, is he now? Is Jesus really the same on this matter of truth? He's the same guy that returned invisibly in 1914. He chose Jehovah's Witnesses in 1919 because Judge Joe Rutherford said he did. And then he said truth can withstand any criticism in 1934. But this Jesus guy who never changes completely changed his tune and now demands that Jehovah's Witnesses never question, examine, or doubt what the governing body calls truth. And for those who are whipping out the old new light retort, it doesn't work here, folks. It doesn't work. It doesn't work ever. See a past episode. And it's time maybe to just admit to yourself that you can't get new light from something that was never light to begin with. Think about it. It ain't old light. It ain't new light because it was just wrong, meaning it was never light at all. Doesn't matter what year. But here we are. As a guy that claims we shouldn't believe in things like evolution, Jesus Christ of Jehovah's Witnesses is always, he's always evolving. Isn't that weird? And this greatest hit is proof conclusive of that fact. And if you're new here or wondering what sorts of truth this organization was serving up and saying, hey, feel free to examine it. It will remain unscathed. Only error hides from examination. How about a sampling? Remember, this hit comes from 1934. What were they teaching about this time? How about this one? From the November 1st, 1938 Watchtower, page 324, we're told, quote, "There is no reasonable or scriptural injunction to bring children into the world before Armageddon, where we are now." End quote. 1938. Wait a minute. Is it still okay to examine this truth? Right? Nothing to hide, right? It'll come out unscathed. I was doing some quick math, and a baby born when you said this in 1938, well, this is awkward. That baby would be 87 years old today. But remember, we're there at Armageddon, 1938. By the way, what the, quote, reasonable scriptural injunction, end quote, discouraging making babies in 1938, what was it? What is it? Can you show us? Can I ask a few questions? Truth is always truth, according to their own words, until it's not, also according to their own words. and it's all credited back to Jesus. How about just one more? From the Watchtower of April 15th, 1928, same time period, page 126, quote, "Sometimes a member of a class will refuse to engage in the canvassing for the books because there are some mistakes in the books and says his conscience will not permit him to put books in which there are mistakes into the hands of people," end quote. By the way, the person refusing to hand out their literature that they're writing this about, my kind of guy. Doesn't want to lie to people? How obnoxious. Back to the quote, "Of course, this is another method that the enemy adopts to confuse the minds and furnish an excuse for not being faithful to the Lord. Pay close attention, as everyone knows." Sorry. As everyone knows, there are mistakes in the Bible. And there has never been a book written yet that is perfect that has been written by any human hand. End quote. Wait a second. The greatest hit is "Examine the Truth." It stands up to anything. And they're now getting on people who don't want to hand out literature filled with lies. But the best part, the Bible is filled with mistakes and it was written by a man? What? I thought Jehovah and Jesus had the Bible written especially for just anointed Jehovah's Witnesses and the governing body. Holy Spirit got involved. Angels were protecting it. Is it okay to scrutinize this truth you put to print and hand it out to mankind in 1928? I can pull up Watchtower quote after Watchtower quote claiming that Jehovah never makes mistakes, that he is the definition of perfection. And of course, the many I use here weekly stating how much the perfect God trusts the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses to speak for him. And well, did you just throw his only letter to man, the Bible, under the bus? Did you just throw it under the bus? I'm going to tell you this one's going to get its own discussion down the line. However, in the spirit of this greatest hit about questioning truth, and it never needs to hide away from any examination, where do you rank claiming the Bible has mistakes and no one is perfect, especially the men who wrote it, and apparently even Jehovah himself? Oh no! In print, to my dear Jehovah's Witness friends. If I'm sticking to the spirit of your comment about truth, never hiding, and only errors hide, how does that apply to the Bible itself being filled with mistakes? Your words, not mine. And while you're at it, since you admit the very book that defines truth is itself filled with errors, how or why can a Jehovah's Witness trust anything the governing body says? Only errors hide. Remember, you told us in 1934, making it a greatest hit. If the Bible's messed up, if the governing body's just why are we listening to you? When it comes to your claims that a parable is somehow a prophecy about you, dear governing body, is there any chance that could be a mistake, one of many mistakes in the Bible? When Jesus forgot to mention a publishing company in the not yet discovered United States of America, was that an error in the Bible? When he gave my guy Noah explicit instructions as to the dimensions of his ark, did he know he only needed it at a certain size because he already knew no one was going to get on the ark with Noah and his family? Seems like an oversight. I mean, how did he know how big to build the damn thing? Apparently did before Noah preached a word. We got a problem. I could keep this up, but again, Houston, we have a problem. Making this organization's early claim that you can question anything and everything about their brand of truth, a true greatest hit. It's one of my favorites in the grab bag. It's hilarious. And for a Jehovah's Witness listening at home, do not try this with the elders in your congregation unless you want to be kicked out the door. Jehovah's Witnesses, despite this being put to print in the 1934 Watchtower, are not and never allowed to question anything that comes from the governing body. It's considered truth, even though it may change. One simple search with Google AI, and a person will learn what happens to a Jehovah's Witness that questions the governing body. It says this, quote, Jehovah's Witnesses who question their faith may face ostracism, a severe form of social shunning from their community, which can include being shunned by family and friends. If the questioning leads to continued non-compliance with doctrine, it can result in removal from the congregation, which is similar to excommunication. The organization interprets doubts as a sign of spiritual weakness or being influenced by Satan, leading to potential suspicion from other members and elders. End quote. Satan's involved now. Oddly, he wasn't in 1934. Despite what you can find in the August 1st, 1934 Watchtower, examining their version of truth is a one-way ticket to shunning and suspicion that you're in bed with Satan, and you will lose everyone that you love. Making this comment from the faithful slave, one of my all-time top 10 favorite greatest hits. Do not try this at home. It's not true. Okay. In the interest of time, let's move on to my third choice, my third greatest hit in this installment of the Grab Bag, Volume 5. In the interest of today's younger PMOs, or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, I want to move it up a little bit in the timeline. Let's take a look at a modern hit from the pages of their daily text publication, otherwise known as Examining the Scriptures Daily. And I'm going to say from the outset, I can't begin to tell you how much I love this one. I love this one for so many reasons, not the least of which, when it was served to the masses, the timing on it. This greatest hit comes to us from the May 30th, 2025, pages 56 and 57 entry of Examining the Scriptures Daily. You remember, for those of us back in the day, we'd go to the service meeting and we'd read the daily text and discuss it briefly. I gave the talk at circuit assemblies, I guess they're now called regional, up in stage in front of 1,000 people examining the day's text, dissecting a verse or two from the Bible. Well, this one, from the May 30th, 2025, comes to us from Revelation 17:14 of the New World Translation, which said this, quote, "Those with him who are called and chosen and faithful will do so." End quote. Okay. What? There wasn't a lot for me to grasp from that sentence. I read it right from the pages. There just isn't much to grasp. Where are they going with this comment? Well, allow me to share the comments and application made by the governing body. It reads like this. Again, repetitive, May 30th, 2025, page 56. Quote, "Who are the ones mentioned in today's text? The resurrected anointed ones. So when the last of the anointed on earth are taken to heaven near the end of the great tribulation, one of their first assignments will be to fight." Fight. Quote, "After being raised to heaven, they will serve along with Christ and his holy angels, waging the final war against God's enemies." Think of it. This is my favorite part. Quote, "On earth, some anointed Christians are elderly, even frail. But once resurrected to life in heaven, they will be mighty and immortal spirit creatures assigned to fight alongside their warrior king, Jesus Christ. After the war of Armageddon has been fought, they will share in guiding mankind to perfection. Without a doubt, they will then do their beloved brothers and sisters on earth a lot more good in heaven than they ever could as mere imperfect humans. End quote. Comes to us from the Watchtower of 2024. You can look this up if you'd like to look in depth at this comment. You may even recognize this, because at some point in the recent past, and I can't recall what meeting or broadcast it was, King Priest Samuel Hurd mentioned these exact same thoughts in one of his talks. As they often do, they lift from stuff. And man, is this good. This is a greatest hit. The governing body, their superhero fantasy in print, proving that they aren't just any ordinary guys. They aren't, folks. When you're watching them on JW Broadcasting or at a local convention, they're really Clark Kent or maybe Peter Parker. They may look like unassuming kings on earth dressed in suits, maybe with a fresh beard, just waiting for Jesus to call them home, where they will step into a heavenly phone booth and emerge more powerful than Superman or Spider-Man. As this greatest hit tells us, they will be, quote, mighty, immortal spirit creatures destined to fight, fighting alongside their warrior king. So the next time you make fun of Stephen Lett, just remember, he has a date with destiny. Not all heroes wear capes, folks. And that includes deciding whether he wants to kill you or not at Armageddon. You may wonder how David Splane can turn into a buff spirit creature, but rest assured, we are told in the May 30th, 2025 daily text, that is indeed what he will be. Incidentally, adding to the weight of this great hit, it's important to note that anointed women will finally get to join in the fun. Even if they're always pictured as white men with white hair and white beards on the clouds in the Watchtower, the ladies will be there too. They just won't be ladies anymore. But they'll also be mighty warriors, serving along the mighty Kenneth Cook, Mark Sanderson, and the like, as they slaughter everyone here on the earth. It's unbelievable. And this is nothing new. This superhero fantasy of them as mighty warriors is not new. From the Watchtower of November 15th, 1980, page 31, we're told this, quote, at Armageddon, there will be relief at the revelation of the Lord Jesus from heaven with his powerful angels, repaying tribulation to those who make tribulation for worshipers of God. This will mean destruction for these persecutors and opposers. Revelation 2:26 and 27 shows that resurrected anointed ones, as part of the seed of God's heavenly, wifely organization, will be associated with Christ Jesus in bringing this destruction on the wicked. End quote. How about another? From the May Watchtower, 2022, page 17, paragraph 10, they remind us yet again that they're mighty, where it says, quote, Jehovah sends forth his son to defend his people and to defeat their enemies. Jesus will be joined in this counterattack by the armies in heaven, the faithful angels, together with the 144,000, end quote. It sure gives us a peek into why Stephen Lett was so excited to talk about bloodlust and how many angels it takes to kill how many people at the latest annual meeting. And I got to tell you, this greatest hit from just this year, from May, is way too much fun. The guys were all watching on JW Broadcasting want us to know that they will soon be transformed into mighty warrior kings. And if you can't tell, they're pretty excited about it. They're really excited about it. Go back and watch Sam Hurd talk about this earlier this year. These very men may discourage you and I from watching Marvel movies, due to all the violence. But they want us to know they will soon hold our lives in their hands as mighty warriors. Oh, and if you're wondering what that looks like when these little frail old guys, most of them overweight or hairless at this point, if you're wondering what they're going to be a part of and have an active share in, I thought you'd never ask. They gave us a snapshot. Behold, the governing body as mighty warriors. From the August 1st, 1981, page 28 Watchtower, we're told, quote, Jehovah's superhuman weapons of war make certain that no enemy will escape. Not one of the wicked will get away. Roaring thunderbolts and crackling lightnings are at Jehovah's disposal. At the flashing of God's means of death to his enemies, the light will be so intense by day and night that the natural sun and moon will, as it were, feel themselves not needed for illumination. Ooh. It will be as if they stood still. Where have I heard that before? Not functioning as light bearers, but letting Jehovah's radiant missiles put on a display of an illuminating power. Jehovah's larger weapon, like a spear, will be sent streaking through the air and brightening the battlefield. Imagine the mental effect on foes of Jehovah and his people. End quote. I gotta tell you, whoever's on the writing committee in 1981, what did they eat that day? Better yet, what did they drink? Jehovah and his missiles and his big spear, the sun and the moon. This is what our mighty warrior kings, currently visible on JW Broadcasting, will be taking part in. But how about one more? Just to show you that they've been looking forward to this for a very long time, their transformation into mighty warrior kings. From the October 1st, 1953 Watchtower, page 606, paragraph 36, this is what Stephen Lett, Mark Sanderson, and the like are all looking forward to. Quote, shocking surprise, consternation, fright, collapse of government and management, panic, wild anarchy, fratricidal warfare, tremendous upheavals of earth, landslides, falling defense and protective edifices, cloudbursts, overflowing flash floods, rain of corrosive liquid fire, terror in the air, on land, in the sea, are all written in that advanced battle account and destined for Gog's attacking forces. Even normally, the sun and the atmosphere working together to stir up a storm will generate and release millions of times more energy than modern science can by detonating 100 atomic bombs at once. I'm sorry. Let the nations then release all at one time all the atomic and hydrogen bombs they possess. The global storm that shall then strike the nations of Satan's world will be far worse than that. The great trembling of the earth's crust that the Almighty Creator will then cause over all the globe will prove more powerful than hundreds of millions of atom bombs. Not sure how the earth's going to make it. Doesn't matter. Back to the quote. And he will not have to explode plutonium either to do it. Horrifying and awful, too, will be the insane, selfish, fruitless fight for survival, man against man within the ranks of this world in a mad scramble to save self, every man becoming his neighbor's enemy, but all in vain. Those who may thus triumph in the fight of survival against fellow man will finally be executed through supernatural means by the fighting forces of Jehovah's King of Kings, the seed of his woman, Jesus Christ. None of them shall escape. End quote. Yes. And all of this will happen. The power of hundreds of millions of atomic bombs, people being burned with fire from the heavens and more. All of this, as the May 30th Examining the Scriptures Daily tells us, will be led by guys like Sam Hurd, Mark Sanderson, Kenneth Cook, and Jody Gently taking a break from real estate to get involved in killing and burning everyone alive and dropping the kind of power that's bigger and better than hundreds of millions of atomic bombs minus the plutonium. These guys this year want Jehovah's Witnesses to know they will be mighty warrior kings, and they can slay the masses with nothing but a toga and a sword. Currently, they might be standing in front of a book cart at a local park, and they seem to be a little short on cash every month. But, if you wouldn't mind donating online. But soon, they will be mighty warrior kings, unleashing the kind of power we can only write about after a couple drinks back there in Bethel. But when I read this hit from just a couple of months ago, my mind, bear with me here, folks, my mind went immediately to something else. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Oh, yes, the movie studio. So, dear listener, I have a question for you. How long will it be until we see Sam Hurd, Mark Sanderson, or maybe Gage Flegel as warrior kings, courtesy of modern technology, CGI, or maybe some AI renderings of a future Sam Hurd looking like a buff Idris Elba, shirtless, muscles glistening and sweaty, wielding a sword as a preview on film to his future life as a warrior king? When am I going to see a young, CGI'd Stephen Lett on a white horse aiming his arrow at those people that made fun of all his facial expressions? Or better yet, a group of worldly babies, those enemies of gods he hates. Just like the guys who came before him had those shots of drowning babies in the My Book of Bible Stories book. I am calling it now. I'm calling it right here and now. Put me on the record. I now understand the movie studio. This state-of-the-art movie studio is going to give us CGI renderings of our earthly king priests as young, perfect, mighty warrior kings. I'm going to call it. We've already seen angels helping people drive through mud puddles. Remember that one? CGI is their friend. And I'm calling it. Bank it. We're going to see one of these guys as some buff, mighty warrior king. But whatever may happen soon, the 11 guys in New York want us all to know that they may not look like much right now, but they're going to be warriors soon. So cue the music from Gladiator, my friends. I'm sure your mental image of guys like Mark Sanderson and Jeffrey Winder will never be the same. They are indeed mighty immortal warriors, currently standing in front of book carts. Again, I gotta say it, they don't seem to be too great at balancing their budget or their checkbook, or even protecting children in the Kingdom Hall, but who are we to argue? We know where they're going to be soon. Superheroes. But I was left with a question when I read this particular greatest hit. Why exactly do they even want us to know this about them? Is this some sort of a threat? Is it narcissism run amok? I don't know. Is it meant to remind us that our lives are in their hands anyway? What are we supposed to do with this information that they will be mighty killers? I would love to get inside the head of one of these guys for just 2 minutes, only because I want to see if they know they have zero self-awareness, or if their imaginations are just running wild about their future life in heaven. Also, I'd also like to know, of the 11 guys, which one of them thinks he's Thanos? Inquiring minds want to know. One more random thought. I couldn't help but wonder, yet again, after all of these greatest hits, but particularly this last one, what is going on with their leader, Jesus Christ? I have to ask the question, what is going on with him? Is this the same guy that rebuked the apostles James and John for wanting to call down fire on people that just pissed him off? Is this the same guy that got upset at the apostle Peter when he got pissed and cut off a guy's ear? I mean, we're told that those guys, the apostles, were the original governing body. But is the current governing body in 2025, how do you say this? They're publishing reminders of how mighty and immortal they will be any second now. And while Jesus was beating up the original guys for being violent, these guys want us to know they can't wait. They can't wait. Bloodlust, have a cup. It's truly unbelievable. These are odd times. But with that, I'm going to end before I just go off on a tangent. These were my greatest hits, Volume 5. The great teacher may not make a bit of sense since his first visit here to Earth. Doesn't make much sense anymore. But as we just considered, you're not allowed to question that anyway. It's just considered truth. And with that, we come to the end of this installment. That Binky you gave your baby is deadly. The truth holds up under any scrutiny, but please just take our word for it. It's the truth. Don't look at it. And soon, Jeffrey Jackson will move from lying on the stand in Australia about child safety to tossing fireballs at all of us as a mighty warrior king. You know, those of us that are also liars like he is. I'm going to take a break now. I look forward to being back in this seat in a couple of weeks. I'm going to enjoy some coffee from some great coffee roasting friends. And so, my friends, until then, wherever you may be, throw away your pacifiers and be well.